Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. And by ScreenCastsOnline, your source for new Mac and iOS tutorials every week. To learn more and for a 14-day free trial, visit ScreenCastsOnline.com. Welcome back to Mac Voices. This is the Talk to the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, iOS 9 is out, and that means a lot of excitement for a lot of folks, but everybody wants to get their hands on it quickly. Even the people in large companies, large educational institutions, that kind of thing. So I thought it would be a great way for us to kick off our iOS 9 coverage by talking to Jason Wudi, the CTO of JAMF Software, who have the new Casper suite or an updated Casper suite ready to go so that you can deploy iOS 9 across your organization quickly and easily. Jason, thanks for being here. I know you have nothing else to do. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, Chuck, and certainly good to chat, and hope I can answer any questions or add some value out for you guys too.
Now, our listeners may be familiar with Charles Edge. He was here talking about a product called Bushel that you all do. And so I'm going to ask you to contrast and compare the Casper suite and Bushel before we dig into just what the Casper suite has been updated to do.
Yeah, right on. And Casper Suite, Bushel, both products that are created by teams here at JAMF Software. The Casper Suite would be a tool set that's focused on lifecycle management for Apple devices in an organization where there's usually a targeted IT administrator, somebody that's their full-time job responsible for managing those devices and making sure that users are successful with them. Bushel is a tool set that was created and launched beginning of this year, really pointed at a whole nother audience that maybe more tailored towards those that IT is a task. So they have a regular full-time duty, and often those IT provisioning or configuration issues would normally end up on their desk. Bushel is a tool set meant for those individuals. So there's a significantly shortened learning curve, a tool set and a workflow that's really focused on those solutions and hoping to get the right tool in front of the right individual based on what their role and responsibilities are.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And I love the fact that you have those two pieces of software that are targeted a little bit differently, because you have the IT professionals who that's what they do and that's all they do. And then you have other people who need the same functionality, but that's not all they do. And so
it really comes down to be the fact that Apple devices are everywhere. and a lot of the things that we've been able to learn, and I'll say back and forth, we're still learning from each market about what people like and want to continue to see be developed. It's really good. And it turns out a lot of the problems that people are trying to solve with any device in any organization, how do I know where it is? Is it secure? And is it set up for its purpose? Are we able to get it to that state quickly and really get technology to get out of the way? I would say that the JAMF mission and really what our goal has been is to help remove technology and give that technology experience or any barriers to make sure that you get a consumer-like experience inside of an organization or an enterprise.
So take us through the Casper suite, and especially with an eye toward what's been updated now for iOS 9, because now suddenly we have all kind of new features and new capabilities, and I would imagine that means that you have more to manage and more complexity in deployment.
Yeah, the major thing that really comes up that's been, I'll say, an exciting journey for all of us here at JAMF and everyone else in the enterprise for the last few years is Apple's continued acceleration of their release cycles, right? We've gotten in this yearly cadence of building, shipping, and delivering software around multiple Apple releases, and it just continues to move forward. When we look at it, was OS 10, now iOS 9, now a watch OS that's being versioned in a TV OS that they had announced last week. So our primary goal and the thing that really IT administrators and end users alike expect to be able to use that release on the first day. So should be, day it's shipped, they expect that their IT toolkit can actually support that and make sure that any of the workflows, security, and configurations that they would have previously had still work. And that's been our commitment really since the beginning of JAMF. The majority of the tools that are created are because individuals that were here around the organization were in the role of an IT administrator, and we knew how painful that can be to not have the tool set ready. To have to look at a user and say, hey, you can't use that device yet, you updated, these things don't work, is the thing that we felt as a tool set for an IT administrator. We never wanted to be in that spot or put our customers in that situation. So very much about making sure that all workflows related to iOS 9 supported, compatible, and the functionality that's there to make sure that it's zero-day support. And that goes right along with iOS 9 at that point. Number of really good functions that Apple is continuing to extend. So additional configuration and settings for features and functionality Apple exposes. Usually those come through the configuration profiles or other opportunities that are for commands and settings. Usually it's an extension. In this case, it's largely an extension of existing capabilities as they expand. A great example would be when Touch ID was added, you get settings to manage and control Touch ID from an IT perspective. So you see those types of functions as they come in, continue to get exposed in the product. And we're really excited here as we go through the next couple of weeks to see the discussion about the expansion of the Apple device enrollment program and the volume purchase program. And they've announced workflows and put them forward related to the overall support of a device-based workflow. So those programs, DEP and VPP from Apple, have been around and largely still being adapted and adopted by a lot of organizations. But Apple has now moved that from just being devices and user-based assignments with VPP to being able to be device-based with the deployment of iOS 9, and OS 10. So very much a story about making sure that the tool set can get there, deploy and support that, as well as make sure that that functionality gets in front of the administrators as their end users bring those devices in. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I have to tell you, I really admire your dedication and the desire to do day one support for a new version of the OS, simply because that can be dangerous. I mean, we tell folks constantly, you don't have to be the first one. A couple more days, maybe even a week, probably won't hurt you. You may not be the first kid on the block, but you also not maybe the one that doesn't have their phone bricked either. So the idea that, and you're talking about a whole different animal here, because you're talking about an organization-wide deployment, and that can be dangerous from the iOS side and from your side as well.
I would say that coming from the background of working in an IT administrator role, you often had things that were about compatibility, about workflows. I would say that Apple in the last few years has done a really good job of allowing the developers in the ecosystem access and information to know what's coming and give them an opportunity to test and make sure that that zero-day experience is solid. And I would say that there's nothing that we have found in the bit of testing that we've been able to do, and I expect that as users get their hands on it, that will be anything except the kind of record-breaking adoption that we've seen in years past with iOS 7, iOS 8. We're expecting to see that same kind of consumerized pace of adoption. People are going to get their notification on their mobile device or on their iPad and say an update's available. I have a hard time not clicking install, and I would expect that most people in the organizations that we work with are in the same boat. So.
Yeah, and Apple does such a great job of hyping everything that you've even though you probably won't use it, you want to try it. You just want to play with it a little bit, and that includes people who have corporate phones as well as their own personal phones.
Yeah, and a big part of what Apple has done is really in that developer ecosystem. So the idea that the apps and content and all the other things that I expected to be there, while we're sprinting to try and support the end users with those devices, I would also say that there's a significant effort from all the developers in the ecosystem submitting updates, running them through the App Store approval process, and I also expect significant numbers of app updates to be focused and targeted at either in continued improvement or kind of work fix on some of those workflows inside of those apps. So it's a very, very busy time for many people inside the ecosystem, but that it really is a fact that if this works the way that it has in the past, and we continue to do what we do and the developers in the ecosystem, that experience for someone who's in an organization should be no different than any other one of us who just has an iPhone that we use as a personal consumer.
This edition of Mac Voices is supported by ScreenCastsOnline, your source for new Mac and iOS tutorials every week. To learn more and for a 14-day free trial, visit ScreenCastsOnline.com. One thing we can all agree on, Don McAllister's ScreenCastsOnline is the gold standard for screencast tutorials. Each week, ScreenCastsOnline delivers a brand new Mac tutorial and also a brand new iOS tutorial. That means each week you get to learn something new for your Mac, iOS device, or both. And we're talking about in-depth, step-by-step instruction, not just quick overviews. And if that isn't enough, ScreenCastsOnline Monthly magazine brings interesting and informative articles to you each month via Apple's newsstand. With a back catalog of over 500 video tutorials, ScreenCastsOnline is one of the most complete video resources for learning about Apple-oriented software on the web. You can enjoy a 14-day free trial to find out that ScreenCastsOnline is right for you, then sign up for a quarterly or yearly subscription that includes everything, including ScreenCastsOnline magazine. Just visit ScreenCastsOnline.com to sign up. ScreenCastsOnline, video tutorials you will really watch and enjoy. Thanks to ScreenCastsOnline for their support of Mac Voices. Talk a little bit for us about what kind of things Casper controls, what controls you have over, as an IT professional, over my phone if I'm working in an organization that uses Casper to manage the devices.
Yeah, it's actually going to come into two flavors, and we've tried to kind of follow along the lead that Apple's taken with the approach of protecting user and user privacy. So if it is a personal device, we actually have a tool set and a functionality around a bring your own device program where we can actually enroll and configure that device, treat it as a personal device, and we can only manage the content and applications and settings that are actually applied from the institution or the organization. So that means we would never gain access to wipe the device. We couldn't gain access to photos or contacts or any of those other resources. But if we put an application that's used in typical environment, let's say I'm going to pick Evernote and Salesforce as an example, application that's on my device. If those are deployed from the organization, we can do what we call a corporate wipe. So as you leave or that device becomes unmanaged, those applications can be removed, protecting the corporate data and assets. We can also allow configuration of things like passcodes and device encryption. A number of those settings that you would expect would kind of be that minimum expectation for security of corporate assets and data. Now, if you move to the full kind of organizational ownership or corporate liability device and take advantage of things like the device enrollment program, so where you buy from Apple, that device can actually be drop shipped or direct shipped to the end user or picked up. Shrink wrap's still on it. They can unbox it. That device can be enrolled. It can be configured and assigned to that user. We can use information about who that individual is inside the organization, perhaps from their directory service or another kind of knowledge system that we would have inside the product to say, this individual gets these applications and these settings based on this type of a device. And those things can be done dynamically. So there's no administrator interaction. That can be set up ahead of time. Devices drop shipped. And all of the settings and configuration you would have with a personal device, plus the controls for full device lock, wipe, unlock from activation, the activation lock, all the way through automated application deployment, removal, and application assignment through volume purchase program and configuration with DEP. So really runs the full gamut of what's capable. There's some things that Apple is continuing to extend through iOS 9, the ability to manage and control updates and do that in ways that they work more seamlessly with some of the restrictions that are in place. I think there's some really good use cases for specific use devices like iPads, even in classrooms and schools where certain restrictions and configurations can be put in place, but still allow a lot of those management functions to continue. It's a pretty good step forward for someone who's managing the iOS platform.
I have to ask, What does with BYOD becoming such a big deal? What does that look like? If I give you my personal iPhone, if I walk into the company and say, okay, this is my iPhone, I hand it to you, and you're going to install Evernote and Salesforce on it, and I don't have those installed right now for myself. I do, but let's pretend it's not. What does that look like to the user? I mean, obviously, there's not a separate business user on the phone because we don't have two user identities on the phone. Do they just appear as normal apps, and there's no? I really can't tell the difference until you decide to exert control.
Yeah, and no. So very simply, the first thing that we would encourage is that you should never hand me your phone. It's your personal phone. Your data's on it, and we would provide a very simple way. It's just as simple as we can send you a message with a URL or an email that you can click and navigate through to enroll yourself. So that would be either based on the invite, or an email can be used to log in, identify yourself, and say that you're Chuck and you would like to enroll it as a personal device. Once we get to that point, all we're doing, we expose the exact permissions that we are granting to the management point. So we have access to manage certain applications, but not without prompting, things of that sort. So we can communicate exactly what we do and don't have access to. And from that point, if applications are made available to you, we actually have the ability to prompt you. You choose if you want to accept it. So, hey, there's this application. It's now being installed. Do you want it? You click install. At the point that you install applications and you receive those configuration profiles for those security settings, configurations, right? The settings just apply, and for the most part, it's things like passcode and the encryption. There's really not much a user needs to interact with. They're general practices, and we can make sure that happens. But in an app example, when a user launches an app that's been managed, there's no difference in experience to them inside of that app. But what it offers is protection that only apps that are managed can share data and information with other apps that are managed. So an example might be, I couldn't copy information from Salesforce into Evernote unless it was managed, or it actually can be done such that you can make it so that a user can only copy and paste into their corporate email. If the email account is set up as a management setting, right, and it's provided to you, you can actually include that so that the information being passed and shared is only amongst the managed applications, meaning you have better control about where your information is being passed and shared through. So that allows you to, an example, if you have another app, let's say you're using reminders for your personal information. I keep the grocery list and reminders, and Evernote is a managed app. I can't share back and forth in between, but I can share across all of my corporate identity. It doesn't show up any different to a user. It's just kind of that, hey, that sandbox has been extended and linked. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And it also makes me feel a lot, not that I felt bad about it, but it makes me feel a lot better about it because, like you say, I'm not handing you my phone. I have the option to be accepting what you give me, with the understanding that it's a corporate app and therefore that data is protected and access to that data or that application could be removed at any time remotely.
Yeah, and there is a big distinction, and it actually makes a ton of sense when we start looking at it, and even when we talk to some of the users that are in the marketplace, between a device that is owned by an institution, whether that's a school or a Fortune 100, there is a difference between the one that they buy and provide and what the expectations are for it versus your personal device. And Apple has made a very bright line around that in the way that they've offered their technology. And we've also kind of picked that up and carried it forward even further to try and expose that so that IT has a clear understanding of what they can and can't do and can communicate that to the user. It's not that we're saying, hey, we're against IT. It's more of a, hey, if we share a common expectation, we can both get where we want to go. IT should be happy. Less touches for for me on the IT side, and you as an end user should feel more comfortable allowing that protection of the corporate data and assets to happen.
It feels good. I mean, and I wanted to ask you, you sound like you're being pretty complimentary of Apple in the way that they have given you the tools that you need to accomplish this task. Are you seeing more support for the enterprise, you think, from Apple over the last few years as we head into iOS 9?
Absolutely, and it's been over the last handful of years on all of the platforms that they've been putting out. And what I'll say is, there is I'm going to give maybe an OS 10 example and an iOS example as you look at it. There is settings that exist within iOS and have for a long time that no user would ever pick up or use. A great example is. There's no way that an end user has a reason to authenticate with Kerberos or another single sign-on provider. But yet there's options and configurations to do that, which only apply to an enterprise or a large organization. Same thing, File Vault is a great tool set that's built into the OS 10 platform. And over the years, Apple has continued to evolve that. They've given a tool set and a configuration for managing File Vault disk encryption keys. Well, an individual user has no need for that, right? You would never have, well, I hope most of us don't have enough Macs where we're managing a central repository of disk encryption keys. But they've extended that and they've continued to do so. But the difference really would be is that they are leaving room for individuals inside the ecosystem to continue to innovate and come up with really great ways to solve that. So I would say JAMF is part of that story. But certainly we're a management solution. I think that the applications and the way that workflows are put together for the enterprise and the apps that are being exposed on it just continue to show up in force. And even when I look at some of the demos and data that's put forward, as much as I might like the iPad Pro and many of the features that are there as an end user, I think that when you put that inside of a professional's hands, right? It's got Pro in the name. I think there's a lot more value that they'll get out of that, even if it's not pointed at IT. I still think that's pointed at a different user and some of the ways that it can be exposed. And the beautiful thing about what Apple's doing is it's not fixed to one individual. It's really left to a great ecosystem of high quality developers and solution providers to put together great ways that people can use that.
I'm glad you ended up with that because it's something that was crossing my mind. Are there any apps that present problems for you to deploy through JAMF's Casper? And I'm not even sure exactly what I'm asking, but I guess there's security apps. There are a lot of apps that have their own settings that are supposed to make them more secure in one fashion or another. Is there anything that presents a challenge for you to deploy?
I would say that the things, I'm sure there's always challenges in the IT administrators that are out there that probably have a lot better hands on it regularly for me. The things that I can point at that we still talk about, maybe an example on OS 10 would be examples of things that are device locked, right? They're hard to deploy in mass when you have either a hardware dongle or it's registered to a particular piece of hardware. And again, that's where you kind of fast forward and say, well, Apple is providing tool sets to do that through software and authorization through the Mac App Store, through the iOS App Store, and the way that they have moved quietly to the user-based licensing model to say, hey, if you sign in with your Apple ID, this is valid and considered to be legal and capable of being deployed. I think we're continuing to see progress. Many of the changes that I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a problem. I would say it is a difference in the way that people are used to managing it. A great example is when we get our iPhone 6S and 6S Plus and we unbox it here in the next couple of weeks, and many people are excited to do it, no doubt it will be running iOS 9 and there is no choice to go back. So if you're in an institution or an organization, perhaps that's an iPad or that idea that you want to standardize on a particular platform, that doesn't exist that same way. And so a few mental processes and management methodologies have to change. You have to be flexible and continue to move forward because in the Apple world, and much to their success, you don't go back. And that's just, there are differences the way that happens. You talked about, hey, that example of those end users that want to update right away on 0 day. Once they do, no going back. And, does it present problems? Maybe temporary, and maybe a little bit of learning curve or some differences when we look at some UI changes that have happened over previous releases. By and large, the customer base that we work with through enterprise and the consumers themselves are saying, they're kind of a fan of getting access to the latest Apple stuff and want to get on it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that's just the nature of most Apple users, especially anybody that pays attention to their device, and probably anyone that cares enough to bring their own device to work and say, you know, I really don't want yours. I want to use this. They're going to be a fan of to some degree, and therefore, you know, they want the latest greatest thing right away.
And there's a lot of power, and we really hope to see, and again, that's that 0-day support. We really hope to see that an IT administrator's focus can turn from how do I prevent that from happening to how do I make sure that everybody got the update successfully. And you know, we continue to try and provide that tool set and communicate and add features and functionality to keep up with Apple. There's a few things over time that people expect from us to continue to innovate on as well. But you know, by and large, that's this time of year, just keeping up with the great hardware, great software, and solutions, and make sure that we keep everybody's devices operating as they expect inside their organization.
I think you're providing such a valuable service to the community. I mean, obviously, you're a commercial operation, but this is the kind of thing that we need to see Apple devices continue to move into the enterprise where we want them and where they belong. And so, you know, congratulations on having this ready on 0-day for iOS 9. Thank you on behalf of a lot of people that are going to be getting the latest and greatest thing because of your software and the ability to do it.
Well, it is very much an honor to be able to work with the customers and the individuals who use our software and solution. And actually, my quick pick on that is that there's actually a lot more than just those of us who get an opportunity to work on it here at JAMF. There's actually the JAMF Nation user community, where I'll say that the users inside of JAMF and the staff and engineers and developers who are here learn every day from the people who are out there trying to get this stuff done. So tremendous community of people who have, you know, in my time that have had a chance to do this have been more willing to help share and communicate and work through the challenges that come up in an open way that's helpful to other people than any other place I've been. So a big thank you to those individuals out there too.
Last thing, the one we always have to ask about, what kind of pricing, and I realize there are probably a lot of tiers here or something. I don't know how your pricing is structured. How do you go about getting a hold of Casper Suite, and what kind of pricing would it go for?
Absolutely. And I think I can make this one pretty easy. It's actually just jamfsoftware.com/pricing. The full gamut of it is out there. It has the different ways that we can get the software and the solution in front of people. It's offered either as a perpetual license, so there's a license and a maintenance. There's also subscription license, which also includes fully hosted and infrastructure managed solution for people to use. There's full training and service capabilities that we offer and help people get up and started. And the information's out there. The quantity one through should be the rest of the volume, and happy to have anybody want to contact either the follow-up link or get the information directly there. But it's the easiest way I can get it is make sure it's right there in front of people is jamfsoftware.com/pricing.
Yeah, and this is not the kind of product we typically talk about, folks. So it's not complex because of the pricing. It's complex because of the number of people that it may apply to. So, you know, it's not just a pay once and you're done, or pay a license fee and you're done. A lot more to it, but go and check it out. I think if you are in the IT professional market and you have responsibility for this kind of thing, this could make your life a lot easier, or at the very least, you'll be a lot more efficient. So, yeah. Right. Jason, thanks so much for the time. I know it's a busy day for you, and we appreciate you giving us a quick update on this so that folks can be aware of this tool and what it can do for them.
I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us as well, and wish you the best.
Same to you. Thanks again.
All right.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. We'll have more on iOS 9 as it comes out, as things become available. I know I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. As always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Mac Voices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the Mac Voices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest Mac Voices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.